The King of Ooo. We've watched him con his way through the land of Ooo for years. We've seen him melted down to nothing when Crunchy pushed him into a fireplace. We've even watched him return in his final form. But hidden in Steve Wolfhard's sketches and a single comic panel is evidence that changes everything. The King of Ooo isn't one person. He never was. And once you see the truth, you'll realize the biggest con he ever pulled wasn't on Princess Bubblegum or the Candy People, it was on himself and the audience. But first, who really is this King of Ooo? The King of Ooo makes his grand entrance in Apple Wedding. Gold suit gleaming, crown perfectly placed, traveling in his personal Zeppelin he calls his Zepp. He's been hired by Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig to officiate their wedding. Princess Bubblegum immediately sees through him, finds expired certificates in his blimp, and crashes the wedding trying to expose him as a fraud. Then he pulls out new certificates from his pocket like a magician pulling rabbits from a hat. But here's what no one's talking about. He never even gives his real name in the series. Not once. Not in this episode, not in any episode. He's only ever the King of Ooo. Tree Trunks ups that by calling him the one true King of Ooo.
The one true King of Ooo.
Mr. Pig's relatives hang on his every word as he grants them 1 year good luck. He slips into the wedding vows that the couple will serve him for 5 years at his mountain compound. Princess Bubblegum immediately throws him in the dungeon. He escapes by eating the bars. Because why wouldn't he eat prison bars? And he flees into the night. Watch him across his appearances and you'll notice something. In Gold Stars, he's living in a slum with Toronto, his Shiba Inu companion. They trick Sweet Pea into dancing in public while they pickpocket the distracted Candy People. The king points out how the people love to laugh at Sweet Pea, calling him a big weird baby man.
I mean, look at yourself. You're a big weird baby man.
When inevitably caught, he manipulates the innocent lich child with a clearly fake apology that Sweet Pea accepts. This made fans theorize on the possibility of the King of Ooo being the King of Thieves in the past. The theory goes like this. The King of Ooo, in an earlier form or an earlier con, became the King of Thieves. He ruled over a city of criminals who couldn't be ruled. Realizing the futility of this eventually, he staged his own death.
You see, if you have too much earwax, you won't be able to hear anymore.
He put a skeleton on the throne with a treasure in its chest as bait. He created a magic barrier that would keep out all thieves, including himself if he ever tried to return. Then he abandoned that identity and moved on to bigger ambitions. It would explain why he never gave his real name, why his past is a mystery, why he's so good at cons. Each identity a stepping stone to the next, each failure teaching him what not to do. This could all be evident from the episode King of Thieves and the King of Oo's behavior, but we think it lies a bit differently. We can see that starting in Hot Diggity Doom, the episode where everything changes for the good ol' coup. The Catalyst Comet approaches. Princess Bubblegum is distracted trying to save the world. The King of Ooo runs for election as the new princess of the Candy Kingdom.
Psst, give me a kiss.
Do you hear us, Princess Bubblegum? Do you hear us?
But there's a problem with the election. The Candy People, created by Bubblegum with deliberately low intelligence to prevent rebellion, can't tell the difference between a good ruler and a con artist. They vote coup in. Immediately after, the kingdom immediately falls into chaos. The king panics, questioning if it's somehow his fault, but Toronto, ever the sidekick, consoles him.
Without your calming presence and selfless leadership, this situation would have been 100 times worse.
The king responds by calling him the voice of reason like he always is. Like always. Wait, they've done this before. Many times. We'll get to that later. There's the episode Mama Said we still have to cover too, perhaps the most absurd display of the king's delusional authority. He summons Finn and Jake, makes them sit on uncomfortably tiny stools while showing them grainy surveillance footage of what might be a flying mushroom.
Looks like a mushroom.
Yes, very good. It is a mushroom or a toadstool.
His plan? He wants to ride it instead of walking. Because, and this is a direct quote, people will respect him more. It's all about the spectacle, you see. When Dirt Beer Guy walks in, the king desperately asks how he'd react to seeing him ride a mushroom. The response?
Boy, that'd really be something.
That's it. That's the validation he's chasing. So off Finn and Jake go. However, they end up abandoning the mission to help Canyon find a sacred spring instead. When they return with a mushroom pizza instead of a flying mushroom, the king fires them immediately. Then he tries to sit on the pizza and fly. Whee! He has a banana guard push him down the stairs to achieve liftoff. He tumbles down, possibly unconscious, while the banana guard sings an old Earth song that shouldn't even exist anymore. Alright, so that's who Coo is. A fraud, a thief. One that shows up suddenly, takes over the Candy Kingdom in its vulnerable state, and abuses its citizens for personal gain. Luckily, at some point, the Candy Kingdom finally gets sick of him. In the Dark Cloud, the Candy Kingdom is threatened with destruction, and the King of Ooo is chilling at a fireplace? Even worse, he takes off his jacket and just chills there in his underpants. When he demands the banana guards close the gate, only to be able to protect himself, the Candy people unite and rebel against the King of Oo's incompetent rule. Crunchy becomes the hero we always expected him to be and pushes the King of Ooo straight into the fireplace. And the king melts. Not burns, not dies, melts into what the episode literally describes as an amorphous blob of earwax. Let that sink in. He wasn't even made of normal wax, but earwax. He flows through the candy streets at night as a puddle of wax. Any other character, that would be instant death, end of story, roll credits. But nope, he returns in the series finale, new and whole again. You see him? There he is. Smaller, balder, wearing nothing but a leaf now, but now called the Waxman of Ooo. Which leaves the question, how does earwax reform into a living being? How does a melted con man just come back? Princess Bubblegum can survive being blown apart because she's made of sentient chicle biomass. Marceline is a vampire with demon heritage. But the King of Ooo, he was supposed to just be a con artist, a regular person, just a fraud in a fancy coat claiming to own the sun. Unless he was never just anything. Steve Wolfhard, the storyboard artist and writer from Season 3 onward, had a particular obsession with the King of Ooo. In his sketches, notes, and comics created for the Adventure Time Cruisine, he dropped information that never made it into the show, information that explains everything. Look at this comic panel. A small golden figure emerges from what looks like a cocoon. Fresh out of my chrysalis, he says. Someone asks if he really is a trillion years old, and his response could stop you cold. He's been alive for like a month. Well, a month. The King of Ooo has been around since Season 5. We've been watching him for years of episodes. How could he possibly only be a month old 1,000 years into the future? Deeper in Wolfhard's notes, we find the concept art for something called the King of Blue. The description reads, "So the King of Blue comes to the Candy Kingdom to hustle, and everyone's like, what the heck are you doing back here? And he has no idea what they're talking about because there are piles of Kings of Ooo all hatched by the giant white Queen of Ooo. Piles, multiple beings, all hatched. Wolfhard even gave them a species name, wax hustlers. It's literally what they are, wax beings programmed to hustle. Con artists by nature, not by choice, and most probably not the King of Thieves. Every King of Ooo emerges from the Queen's chrysalis believing he's unique, special, the one true king. They're all born with the same personality, the same delusions of grandeur, and the same schemes. They probably all claim to afford the sun, they all travel in blimps they can't quite afford, they all find someone like Toronto to help them navigate a world that sees right through them. When the king says Toronto is, as always, the voice of reason, maybe Toronto has advised dozens of Kings of Ooo. Maybe every few years, a new one hatches or emerges, or gets melted down and reborn, finds Toronto, and then starts the same doomed journey towards imaginary royalty. Maybe it's the same king that we see regenerate, or maybe a new one. Another storyboard Steve made also shows the Waxman having a new sidekick. It could be a new version of the King of Ooo and a new sidekick. Princess Bubblegum's origin story is key here. She was created from the Mother Gum, a massive sentient biomass that spawned her and Nettie. But here's the crucial difference. The Mother Gum, or gum hive, was eventually destroyed. But earwax? Earwax can melt and regenerate. Your body produces earwax constantly. It's self-renewing, self-replacing, and lubricating. If the Queen of Ooo is made of that same waxy substance as her children, kind of like the Mother Gum but creating her own offspring, then she never stops producing kings. Unlike Bubblegum's Mother Gum that kind of withered away, the Queen keeps hatching new wax beings, each one emerging with the same delusions of grandeur. When Crunchy pushed the king into that fireplace, he didn't kill him, he just turned him into a more primal form before he regenerates. The statue of the King of Ooo in the future, mentioned by BMO 1,000 years later in Come Along With Me, that's not honoring one individual in the past, it's potentially honoring all of them at once. A monument to an endless cycle of wax beings, each one a con artist, each one doing their best to convince the people of the time that they are the greatest monarch that ever was. None of them knowing that they're just repeating it, but maybe everyone else just sees an invincible King of Ooo spanning 1,000 years. Every King of Ooo believes that his story is different. They all find their Toronto, they all run the same cons, they all claim to own the sun because somewhere in their waxy genetic code is the unshakable belief that they deserve everything. The greatest tragedy of the King of Ooo, regardless, is that he doesn't know that he's just one of many frauds, that every scheme he runs, every lie he tells, every moment that he believes he's special and he's smart for coming up with a new con, it's all been done before by another king who looked exactly like him, sounded exactly like him, and failed exactly like him. When Princess Bubblegum calls him a criminal and a con artist, she's right, but she doesn't know the full truth either. The King of Ooo didn't choose to be this way. It's in his nature, his biology, his very substance. Imagine being born believing you're royalty, only to melt in a fireplace and have another version of you emerge somewhere else, thinking the same thoughts, running the same cons, failing the same way. You're just a version of some cosmic joke. And maybe that's why Toronto stays, out of pity for all of them. Someone has to guide these month-old beings who think they're ancient royalty. Someone has to be the voice of reason for creatures who will never learn because they never live long enough to understand what they really are, and someone has to profit off of the poor con man who's being conned. But what do you think about our theory? Let us know in the comments down below. However, something even more mysterious than the King of Ooo is how Martin Merton ended up in the Citadel. What kind of crime did he commit to get there? We think we figured it out. See if you agree by clicking here.